Recorded at Get a Grip Studios in Toronto, Canada. A Get a Grip management production and in association with the Get a Grip on Lighting podcast. Financially supported by the good folks at the National Association of Innovative Lighting Distributors, this is Restoring Darkness podcast.
This episode of Restoring Darkness is brought to you by Evluma. If you're serious about contributing to the reduction of light pollution, go to evluma.com, hover over products, and click on Dark Sky Friendly Lighting. Both the OmniMax and AreaMax lights are International Dark Sky Association certified. The warmer color temperatures of the OmniMax reduce the more easily scattered blue wavelengths, which contribute to glare and sky glow. With AreaMax lights, you get full cutoff, which also means no uplight and a significantly reduced contribution to sky glow. And all of Evluma's outdoor lighting product lines come with dimmable drivers for even more control. If your customer is looking for dark sky-friendly fixtures with energy savings while still meeting the demands of decorative lighting, look no further than Evluma. Evluma, illuminating the pursuit of dark skies.
Hello, folks. Michael Colligan here. Just a quick preface at the beginning of this episode. This is part 2 of my conversation with Tim Brothers. So if you want to get the full context of what we're talking about, you may want to go back one episode and listen to the first episode, or not. It's up to you. It kind of took a different turn in the second half. So this is the second part, though, of Tim Brothers and I on Restoring Darkness. Here it comes. You know, there's a Jevons paradox going on with outdoor LED lighting, and I think it's driven by safety. And I'm putting safety in quotes, and I'm going to give all the respect to the people that have researched this because their research is legit. They say, you know, the more light you add, we seem to have less crime. I think we have less of a certain type of crime, perhaps. Whatever crime they're particularly measuring, okay? But we don't know what the optimal point of that is. You know, that's where I think with controls, and this is where just to loop back to that, where, you know, you go to, and I love the folks at PNNL, okay? Pacific Northwest National Laboratory. And they have a deep study of lighting controls right now, but it's all on the inside. They're all looking at inside the facility. And most lighting guys will say, you know what, in the retrofit world, most people are not going to implement a sophisticated control system if they change their lights, because they're going to do it incrementally. They're going to do certain areas first. They may want to have the odd passive infrared occupancy sensor on their lights, but they don't want any deep control of those lights. Like they're going to say, a customer is going to say, why do I want an app on my phone to control the warehouse lights? I just want them on when someone's in the rack aisle and off when someone isn't. Like I don't need anything else other than that. And a lot of people are going to get mad at me, Scotty, but for saying that. But to the outdoor, think of the things researchers could look at if we deploy these sophisticated control systems that they have now, okay, with occupancy sensing, data collection, light levels, color temperatures. You could compare streets in different neighborhoods that are very similar, look at crime outcomes. I mean, giving lighting control to municipalities over their street lighting seems like such an amazing idea, and nobody's talking about it.
Yeah, it's an interesting issue, and I think one issue in terms of so I mentioned, Massachusetts because that's where I live, and we happen to be employing these controls all over the place. So it's state subsidized. They're getting the lights and the control packages, and then they're in this situation where, okay, so then what's the incentive in using them, right? So if you don't know a lot about lighting, or you don't know a lot about the issues of lighting, you're just some administrator in a town or a city. If you're not able to even recoup the savings on the back end, so this is another issue with something I never thought I'd care about, which is the word tariff. And what we found is that we're pushing everybody to use all this new technology, but they're still getting a capped rate. So for example, if your town, for example, my town, some of these lights are now at certain points in the night, 6 or 8 watts, right? This is awesome,
Wow.
right? We're saving
Yes.
tons and tons of energy. This is amazing. So, the project was proposed to save 70%. With using the controls, we're actually saving 81%. So we
Wow.
push the savings even further. Awesome. Great. But guess what? We're still getting charged 25 watts all night long.
25 cents a kilowatt hour? Or
No,
what?
25. We're getting charged whatever the rate is. I can't tell you what the cents per kilowatt, but we're getting charged 25 watts per hour for the light, even if we're using 6 or 8 watts.
Why is that?
So this is this structure we have in Massachusetts, and I'm not sure how other states approach this, but basically the way it says is there's a rate making authority. The bottom rate is capped at 25 watts, even
Per
when
light.
you're doing, yeah. So it disincentivizes a lot of towns. So we talk to some towns and we say, well, why don't you just cut them to 50%? You got sold in this one-to-one conversion. We can help you save some more carbon, even if you just want to look at it from that perspective. Well, we're never going to recoup the savings, so why bother? Right?
The
So if it's just the
ROI
dollars and
question is a
cents,
big problem. The ROI question is a big problem. It's a big problem. And
so
also, like, the utility does need a certain amount of revenue in order, because the utility is responsible to maintain those poles, correct?
not necessarily. So a lot of towns are buying
Oh,
out the equipment. That the utility might own the pole, so the
okay.
real estate, but in many cases now the towns are buying out. It's really a mishmash. So it can be that the town buys everything. It might have their own municipal lighting authority, or in many cases there's probably 2 power companies in the state. And this is the case for generally New England, where you have a couple companies running the show, and they own the pole, but the town maybe bought into the streetlight, maybe they bought into some maintenance program, and you know, at the end of the day, the Department of Public Utilities negotiates with the utility whatever that rate is, and for the most part, in most places, because they're unmetered lighting, they're capped at 25 watts. So that's one of the things that our legislation would fix, would actually start setting, uh, allow the DPU to set what those new rate schedules would be. And that we hope with incentivizing actually utilizing this technology you've already paid for, to start setting it to whatever your community needs. You could start setting it, but you could start capturing the savings on the other side.
I have to say something that's, going to be maybe a little crude, but I'm going to give you talked about Massachusetts a lot, okay? And I'm going to talk a little bit about Ontario.
Sure.
So, um, I'm Canadian, and Ontario is largely a dark sky place, by the way, because it's enormous and most people don't live. You just start driving north, and you're in the dark sky zone,
Right.
pretty quick, but not really where anyone lives. But I have to say that I've in understanding these issues from the lighting perspective, the darkness perspective, and this sort of stuff, and then also the climate change perspective. Did you know that Ontario's energy production is like 95% free of carbon? Did you know that?
I wouldn't have expected you to say that. Yeah.
And did you know that Ontario has to pay many US states to take that energy?
Has to pay them?
Yeah, so it's a negative kilowatt hour charge. So Ontario
Huh.
produces so much nuclear energy that you can't
Okay.
turn nuclear on and off. It's either running or it isn't.
Right.
Okay. I don't know if it's 3 or 4 years ago, I went to see a presentation on electric vehicle chargers, and the president of OPG stood up and said, "Hey, guess what, guys? If every Ontarian buys an electric car, the price of electricity will go down in Ontario."
Interesting.
Okay. Now, you hear whenever you hear about Canada, all you hear about is Alberta and the oil sands and all this kind of stuff, right? Dirty energy, all this
That's
sort of
true.
stuff, right? So, like I often do this to people. What do you think? Which country do you think is more efficient in electricity? Germany, or Bavaria, or Baden-Württemberg, or Ontario? And they all say Baden-Württemberg because of all their solar panels. But Germany produces 500 times more carbon emissions for their electricity per person than Ontario.
They also
Five,
got rid of their nuclear reactors, didn't they?
yeah, but 500 times.
Yeah.
Okay, Quebec is also another zero carbon emission electricity jurisdiction. You think the politicians would be screaming this from the rooftops, do you not? You would think that, hey, northeast of the United States, you want clean energy? We're in a wash of clean energy here in Ontario and Quebec. In fact, if you just paid for it, even 5 cents a kilowatt hour, we could hook you up to us, and you don't have to build any nuclear power plants, and you don't have to dam any of your rivers. because Quebec is all hydro and Ontario is all nuclear. And I think they've idling 3 nuclear power plants in Ontario. Just idle, they're turned off. Turn them on, and you got tons of energy. We got more energy than we know what to do with in Ontario and Quebec. And like you'd think that the premier of Ontario would be going to Michigan, hey, Gretchen, what do you got going on? You want to go clean? Forget about that. Don't get into the natural gas pipelines right now. I'm going off topic here. Okay, like Ontario and Michigan are not really places to live without natural gas right now. But why don't you hook up to this grid here, and you can shut off all your coal power plants. Like, why? Like, are these people stupid or what? Like, I look at this and I say, how could the Premier of Ontario in 2022, in the age of carbon emission reduction, not be talking about this every single day? I don't understand that. It boggles the mind, Tim. I'm serious, and it pisses me off. I talk to my kids. Does the teachers ever tell you, and all of your negativity about how bad everything is, and the world's going to die, and the polar bears are going extinct, and everything else? Did they ever tell you that all of the electricity in Ontario is carbon free? Never. Nobody knows about it. I don't understand.
Yeah, this is all new to me, to be honest.
Like, it's mind-boggling to me. But this is where I often wonder, how the hell are we making decisions? Like, the name of your town where they did this study makes sense. How come, like, at the top, what's going on up there that we can't get this done with the controls and the lighting and the energy and all these sorts of things? Why is it, what's actually going on? It bothers me a little bit, Tim, that this is where the trade association that pays for this podcast comes in. And we're trying to bring the knowledge of all those practitioners, frontline lighting practitioners, to the table. And it's very difficult. They don't want to be listened. Like, people don't want to listen to distributors. And then, it's a problem. But I think that's the issue, is that I'm not sure the people at the top of this pyramid know what they're doing.
Well, I mean, I think you could certainly say that about the policymakers, right? So, we've been trying to pass, and it seems like a no-brainer, right? Just what's the point of shining light upward? Just never mind, even before LEDs, right? Like, why has it taken 3 decades to pass lighting legislation in Massachusetts, right? We're supposedly this green progressive state. We're the only state in the Northeast. Even I think Nevada just passed an outdoor lighting legislation.
Those
the
damn
home of Las
Nevadians,
Vegas.
they're below us.
Well, I mean,
Like,
they have this huge Las Vegas, lighting, outdoor display,
Sure.
but they can pass that. But Massachusetts has trouble. I think getting people to, and part of this, I think, gets back to one of your original questions was, should we be focusing on the word dark and sort of this misnomer about, what are we actually trying to accomplish? We sort of have to reframe what this is about, and sometimes you have to get to the money question, and then that's why we've really focused on that in the legislation. There's a bunch of good stuff. There's shielding, there's color temperature, there's illumination levels. There's doing studies of reflectorized roadway markers, but really, it's the selling point is enabling people to capture the savings, because sometimes people's attention span is just a little too short, and it's hard to move to capture all of these sort of loftier goals of preserving the Milky Way. There's not as big of a constituency in people's ears about that, unfortunately. So I'm not sure where I was going with that, other than I think at the end of the day, it's about money. I am surprised though about what you're saying about.
I don't think it is
happening.
about money. I disagree with you on that. I mean, I think it's partially about money, but in the United States, just as an observer, I think it's about political score settling. I think all of this stuff gets lost in the Democrat versus Republican. I support my American. I support my football team on Sunday problem you guys have. Like, I've never seen anything in my life in any of the countries where I've been to that are like British soccer fans and American football fans, like football fans in America. And there seems to be
Sure.
like that religion has been replaced by football and politics in the United States. And there's like this team mentality that is in it where the most important thing is to beat the other team. And whether that's you're a Republican or a Democrat or whatever. And instead of
Yeah.
actually saying, hey, you know what, whether hey, I don't care if you're into carbon emissions or not, but look at all this great clean energy we have here. Why don't we sell it?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, who cares about how you can brand yourself or tie your party up into this or whatever? What about the people of Massachusetts? What about the people of Ontario? What about them? And how can we help them? How can we make their lives better? How can we lower their electricity costs while achieving our aims of reducing pollution? It's like instead it's got to be, well, this is our issue and it's not their issue and we need to capture it. And how do we strategically use it as a baton to beat the crap out of them? I don't understand that. Like, that's where I think, there's been a breakdown and why we can't seem to get things done, because the priority isn't about darkness restoration or dark skies or carbon emissions. It's about winning the next election and making humiliating your opponent, or, whatever. That's where I get a little bit hopeless when I see that the focus, these people are spending 90% of their time on politics. Or, well, I don't even know what you want to call it politics, but mudslinging or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we certainly see a lot of pushback for that sort of nonsensical, division of perceived tribe, right? So, we see that especially in the local levels. And it doesn't matter, if you're in, Texas, New York, California, or Massachusetts, doing things like, say, passing ordinances or bylaws get to be a really heated, if you've ever been to a town meeting, I don't know if Canada has local town meetings to
Oh, yeah.
decide. Yeah. So we still, especially in New England, we have these, once or twice a year town meetings to decide things, and they're a mudslinging fest, right? So it doesn't matter if you're doing something that benefits every single person in the town. Half the people will divide themselves up and say, well, I'm against that, for whatever nonsensical reason. And we've certainly seen that with even just sensible lighting policy, like, you know, let's just, make sure that lights don't. We've had people argue about basic things like, I want to have the right, when we try to propose, light trespass rules, to say that, you can't spill into someone's bedroom window. Well, I want to have the right to spill whatever light I want into that person's window. It's my light. We've had people make that argument. Um, and so it just gets absurd. So you have to sort of pick your battles sometimes.
So when are the adults going to show up at the meeting?
We're still waiting. I think part of this has to do with, doing the work, right? So it takes a long the sausage making part, which is creating a constituency, creating awareness, educating people. That takes a while. Um, but education doesn't replace, at the end of the day, regulation. You have to have some line drawn in the sand for people to guide them. You have to have some sort of guide rail. Um, to help people make better decisions, because you can't expect the decision makers to be an encyclopedia where they know every single issue about anything, particularly about lighting. It gets really technical. I don't know about you, but I feel like I'm still learning every single day. And so it's really important just to put things down on paper and say, this is what we have to do. And we have to all join hands, whether you like it or not.
We've spoken for 55 minutes, if you can believe it.
Yeah.
I want to finish with so our distributors, which are often, in the lighting community, we're often told to stay in our lane, and or kind of shunned a little bit. But they came up with one of our committees came up with 6 strategies for darkness restoration and preservation. I'm just going to read them to you here: industry alignment, advocacy, training, certification, enforcement, which is regulations and local ordinances and bylaw officers and so on, incentives. Those are the 6, right? And I think where we have to start, like you said, if people walk into a lighting distribution store or electrical distributor, and the person on the counter is saying, no, man, you can't go 5,000K. Nobody does that anymore. You got to go 2,700K, and it's got to be shielded. What are you talking about? Yeah, no, dude, nobody does that anymore. You wouldn't believe how powerful the shaming of colleagues is within the NAILD. Okay, like No, we don't do that anymore. Nobody does that anymore, man. Come on, you're a nail distributor. You got to start pushing the darkness issue here on out onto your people. Come on, you're an electrical distributor that's part of our group. We got to start pushing this. We got to help the people out there. That's where that responsibility as a vocation of as a lighting professional comes in. And we're so far away from industry alignment right now that, and then we can't even get to training. Like we have to get the industry on board first. And I think once the industry's on board and people are being trained, then we can move to the advocacy piece and start helping it out. And I think, from the IDA's perspective, I think they need to push into industry, into the lighting industry, and help them with training and help them with certification. This is an IDA certified person, not just a fixture, a person.
Yeah, I want to draw a big circle around the training part. That's something I've talked to a lot of different people about, and I think I'm seeing it in the big box stores. So like when, because a lot of lighting that's really bad, that's causing a large driver, I think, of this problem is the home do-it-yourself lighting, right? Somebody installs a new floodlight, new porch light, and I've seen, completely polar opposite from reality, spiels from the workers who work in those stores explaining, this light is for this task, or I would use this light. Getting to the color temperature thing, we were talking about the perception of brightness, talking about this light will put out the most amount of light, sort of steering people in the complete opposite direction we want people to be going in. And then you're seeing it on, the professional installers, the union tradespeople. The training is still not aligned with what the conversation we've had today, right? So they're still sort of pushing back and saying, well, the training I'm getting, and you can't blame them, right? Because they're getting bad training on what they should be installing. This wall pack that's just, literally like 10 times too bright for the task, and zero shielding. Someone at the store should be telling them that. Maybe their buddy, the designer, should be telling them that. But certainly, when they go for those refresher courses, we could be cleaning a lot of this up there as well.
Well, I'll tell you this. I mean, while Home Depot and that may be an issue, the vast majority of lights are sold by distribution, outdoor lighting. And so if we get to the distributors, which are organized, they have trade associations that represent them. They have, training programs that we could add to. Home Depot is a tough one. Lowe's is a tough one to kind of get in there and start, because there's a lot of turnover too in those jobs. And
yeah,
I think I would leave that for the enforcement. But you are going to get the odd person in their outdoor rink in the winter that's going to, go to Home Depot and just buy a 1,000-watt LED floodlight and, 16 backyards are lit up in the area or whatever it is. But and they're going to demand to be allowed to play hockey at midnight or whatever it is. But, the vast majority of these lights were sold by distribution and DLC approved on their QPL. Right? And so we have avenues, and I know the DLC is working really hard on their Luna program right now. But I think, and I'm just going to say it, I think the DLC should come out and say, you know what? We screwed up. And the lighting industry should come out and say, we screwed up and we messed up this lighting play. We're sorry, but we need to change all the outdoor lights we sold you in the last 10 years.
Yeah, so you bring up the Luna program, for example. That came up in our chapter recently, and I wasn't aware of it. And that's another thing that's sort of getting confusing too. So now you have like several different certification programs, whether it's the IDA, you have this other nighttime one, there's a turtle-friendly one, there's Luna.
Yep.
And, Luna is a good start. I mean, I think they could go further. But I'm glad that we're finally acknowledging it. But I think there needs to be a coordination because I sort of feel bad for the consumer, right? So I know about lighting, you know about lighting. I can make some educated guess about what the right porch light is, but people just want to buy something that's not going to cause problems, right? They don't want to cause a problem. So just making it easy for them, whether it's a really general sticker that applies, get all the organizations to agree on something.
I
Just make it
disagree
easy on
with the
people.
focus on products. Like that's where I think the IDA and Luna and me as a host of this podcast or whatever, we diverge. I think there's products can be misapplied anytime you want. You know what I'm saying? Like you can take a product and you can shoot it straight. You can install it up like this. I mean, products are we're limited in in products in its reach. We need certified people and companies. Okay, so take software. You have Microsoft, right, which is a product. It works great, but you need that Microsoft certified partner that knows how to deploy that product for you intelligently. You know, and so I think we have to change focus away from products and on to people, and train individuals in the moral, ethical case, technical, by the technical aspects of products, the deployment of controls, use cases, talk about factory walls, and then we need to devise a simply understood um, return on investment or benefit strategy for the clients. And if we've done all that, then we can go to and look for incentives from the government or from the
Okay.
utilities or whatever. Yeah.
So if you say that, okay, so let's say that, the problem is not with the consumer. I mean, then you're really talking about regulating the manufacturers, right? Or at least advising them in a really strong way. So because you're trying to essentially, if I'm correct, trying to prevent them from making the bad product in the first place,
No, you
right?
can't do that because you gotta be able to go from prison yard to national park, right? But only prison yards need to be lit up like prison yards. Not you know what I'm saying? The local Home Depot parking lot doesn't need to be lit up like a prison yard. You know? And so we have these it's the reason why it's difficult to penetrate this with product certification is because you have so many different applications. Like I always say, prison yard to national park. You got and everything in between. You know, downtown. Small quaint downtowns are different than say downtown Toronto or downtown Boston. They have different needs, and so that's where we need to start with people. We need people to understand these concepts. We need people to be certified and trained by the IDA, by NAILD, or by the IES. And then as those people learn to deploy, maybe we can get into some product specifications on color, temperature, or maybe we could do it at the same time. But I think there's an over focus on products. Slap a label on that thing. Good. Whew, we're done. But people don't know what they're doing with it. They don't know where it applies. And if we don't solve that problem, Tim, I don't think we can get out of it.
It's an interesting perspective. Um, I I see what you're saying, and I think that's this. This is sort of useful even for me in that we don't normally we sort of are in our silos, right? We sort of
Hmm.
think about these problems from our perspective, and I think it's been in some ways, sometimes these are tough conversations because you sort of have these perspectives about what is the problem, and then I just want to take a hammer to that nail and bang it down.
Hmm.
But I do think we all have a different story to tell because we're experiencing these lights in different stages of their own lifetime, right? So
Hmm.
whether the light was designed or you're talking about it from these few key people certifying it,
Lighting designers
bef
don't know anything about darkness. Like I mean, I don't think it matters if a lighting system is done by a designer or not. And I know James Benya or someone's going to say, "Colligan, what are you talking about?" No, man, 95% of designers are not interested in outdoor light. First of all, like in serious application of outdoor light, and second of all, none of them have any darkness training. They don't know what they're doing either. So this idea that it's not we need lighting designers don't have any darkness training, Tim.
Yeah, I guess I was more saying on the person who's designing the light itself, even
Okay.
before, that you're talking about like the person in the community designing light. And I think I know what you're saying about that too. I think it's sort of, our experience has been hit or miss depending on who you hire. You can get somebody who
Hmm.
is going to put prison lights everywhere no matter what, and then you're going to get somebody who totally gets it, right? And does a beautiful job of,
Hmm.
tucking lights under so there's no glare and all sorts of, fancy
I
things.
I think the fundamental problem is that Tim cannot walk into an electrical distributor anywhere in Massachusetts and have a conversation intelligent conversation at the counter about dark skies, darkness restoration, and preservation with anybody.
Yeah, they definitely don't want to hear from me.
But why? You have money. You want to buy lights.
Yeah, I think there is an element of like, come on, man, I just work here, right? They don't want to be lectured.
I don't think
And
it's a
and that's
lecture. I think that you should be able to go into a Tim Brothers who wants to do,
Yeah.
X, Y, or Z should be able to walk into the local electrical distribution store and say, okay, I'm trying to do this project at the observatory and I need 25 wall packs, but I need them cut off. And he's like, you know what, man? We have this great premier manufacturer, but if you're on a tight budget, we also have this low cost guy and they're not controllable, but they're all 27K and they have photocells on them and they're cut off. But you can get into this premium brand where it's controllable and you can have an app on the computer and you can address it and you can dim it. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you go into a lighting distributor in Arizona, they're going to know everything about landscape lighting. All that kind of information, you can have that dialogue. I think we got to train the distributors. I really believe that deep in my heart, Tim, that the way out of this is to train people that are frontline lighting practitioners, designers, agents, distributors, and contractors, and find a way to train them.
And then have them talk to the distributors. Is that what you're saying?
No,
To sort of educate them?
have them talk to the customers. Have
Okay.
them be the deliverer of the message, and make it
Okay.
super cool to go darkness. I mean, trying to train the customers when the people who sell the stuff don't know anything about it is like, you're going to have, someone speaking Mandarin and the other person speaking Urdu. They're not going to connect. I think the training starts I think we need to start with industry alignment. And then once the industry says yes, then we go to training. And I think that's the way out. I really do. Training the industry, not trying to train the Home Depot associate or the individual that lives in the city. They don't care about lighting. They just want it to be on. They just want it to work. The people that care about lighting should know about this.
But how do you then deal with, like so much of the light because it's so easy to install your own lighting. You don't need to hire an electrician.
Mhm.
How do you deal with the person who, you know, okay, so we're on one hand we're talking about like what happens in your parking lot between,
Mhm.
the wall packs and the elevated lighting. But then on another hand you're talking about, one poorly placed floodlight that's aimed upward, can make more difference than 20 streetlights. Um, you know, that to me is worrisome too, because I think if we haven't added, parking lot lights or street lights in decades in some of these towns, but you know, the light pollution is growing 3, 4 times the national average. Well, why is that? It's there's a good chance a good portion of that are individuals making decisions on their own
Well, that's
without
the
any
enforcement
background,
piece. That's the
you know.
enforcement piece. That's where you need
But
enforcement.
sh but should some of these high intensity lights with high color temperature even be sold at Home Depot? Is that necessary?
That's a great. I mean, yes. I mean, that could be, but you're going to be able to buy them somewhere. And I mean, you can make it's the old adage like they want to solve the problem of mitigation of energy efficiency by making all incandescents all illegal. Okay, that's one of their. Let's just ban the incandescent light bulb, or we want to get rid of mercury. Let's just ban the fluorescent light bulb. But what they don't understand is that there are probably more. I'll tell you this for sure. For every human being in the United States, there's probably 50 4-foot fluorescent tubes right now in operation. Something crazy, some crazy number like that, right?
Yeah.
And so the other thing is that there's all manner of specific light bulbs. Like I have a little. This is just a counter mat that we nailed distributors use that have all different kinds of shapes and types of bulbs. Blanket bans on stuff I don't think are helpful. I think you probably could say to Home Depot, you're not allowed to sell this light fixture in the state of Massachusetts. And then you have like a balkanization all across the United States of different rules and it just makes it difficult to do business. And the other thing is that if you do that without enforcement, if you don't have a proper enforcement strategy, you're just going to make the cheaters stronger and the compliers weaker, right?
See, I
So,
don't think you even need to get into banning specific products. So I guess what I'm talking about is like the buyer, right? The person who's
mhm.
purchasing from the distributor. Can you also educate them and say, instead of filling your shelves with all, let's say 4000K, you know, par 38 floodlights, could you do 2700K par 30s? Because at the end of the day, people go in and just say, there's the one, that looks like the thing, and they're not going to look at any numbers on the box. So sometimes it's just what about you put on your end cap in your store, and can we ask them, hey, still have these available. If someone has a task, you can have a little
Hmm.
row for this, but can you start generally shifting it a little bit over in this direction? I think that would make a huge difference. Instead of the new doorway lights, um, instead, you can have a couple of those horrible ones. There's some reason why somebody might still want that. But can you start buying products X, Y, and Z, regardless if they have an IDA sticker or whatever on it, that have full shielding? I don't think that's a heavy lift, and you don't need to have regulation for that. People still ultimately would have the freedom to buy what they need, but just start filling the shelves. You know, when you go to Lowe's or Home Depot online, there's a dark sky click box in the side now, right?
That's a good start.
Now it's a
Is
good
there on
start. It's
on
a mess.
Lowe's.com? Is there a Lowe's.com click box that says dark skies? Is that legit?
I believe there is. I forget. I think it's called something slightly different. The thing is, you get a lot of lights that are not what I would call dark sky compliant or whatever you want to say it. Um, Clean it up. Make it an actual curated section.
Well, forget about
Direct
Lowe's or
people
Home
to.
Depot. Forget about them because I would say the vast majority of outdoor lighting manufacturers do not have a dark sky section on their website. Vast,
No, they
like the
don't.
people that make all the lights.
They may not know. I see. I think they're missing a huge opportunity here,
Me
right?
too.
Like, so to get back to one of your original
We
points,
agree
I
on
think this
that.
is
We
a.
agree on that for
Yeah, I
sure.
think there's this selling point of like, because when you explain it to people, they're like, well, I would totally buy whatever, if it's just roughly the same cost, I would pay whatever, to get the one that's better for, X, Y, or Z. And I'll give you an example. GE makes a really nice floodlight that's 2700K. The LED's recessed, so you get some sort of like partial shielding to begin with. Um, and I tried them out on a couple situations. And I'm like, why don't they market this? Why isn't this on the shelves? Because I think if people tried this, and there's other clones, other manufacturers make similar ones after I looked, so I don't want to pick favorites, but there are products available now that solve a whole bunch of these issues, maybe not all the way, but most of the way, and they're just not pushing it. Or maybe, people are not putting it on the shelves because you can special order them. Some of these lights, they exist, but they're not filling the shelves. And I think if they were just there, people would buy them without thinking, just as they do now. And that would start solving the problem.
We're gonna have to agree to disagree on that one. But this has been
Fair
an
enough.
awesome conversation, Tim. I mean, I really appreciate you coming on the show, and it's been an hour and 15 minutes. I'm gonna ask you. I'm gonna close it out, but I'm gonna ask you to stick around for one more minute after, if that's okay.
I'll still be here.
Any final thoughts for
Thank
the
you.
listeners? Any final thoughts for the listeners before we head off?
My big suggestion is go outside and look up. I think connect with the night sky, and if you feel like you're missing something in it, do something about it.
If you made it to the end, that's a lot longer. We try to keep them half an hour. Tim and I went an hour and 15 minutes because, you know what? I was enjoying the conversation and I was challenging him and he was challenging me. And that's what we're trying to get someplace we got to do in this situation. So, folks, if you made it to the end here, I know from Scott, myself, and the National Association of Innovative Lighting Distributors, we love you guys. Bye for now.
Look no further for dark sky friendly products than Evluma. Since its first product launch, Evluma has carried one or more International Dark Sky Association certified models. If your customer cares about light pollution, suggest the OmniMax with shielding or the AreaMax with full cutoff to reduce uplight and glare. Evluma, illuminating the pursuit of darkness.